Welcome to Digital Value Creation. I'm here today with Dharm Sadasivan, VP of Marketing at Thirdware. And I'm very excited to have Dharm here today because we'll talk about manufacturing and supply chain, two industries that have been slightly behind the digital innovation curve. And I'd like to discuss why that is and what the future may hold for these industries.
Thomas, thank you very much for having me on your show. And coming on the heels of Vinny, it's probably going to be a tough act, but I'll do my best. And this is a great initiative, by the way. And I hope a lot of listeners and audience kind of benefit from these conversations.
To kick it off, Dharm, why don't you tell us something about yourself?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I am the head of marketing at Thirdware Solution. We are an IT services company that's based out of Michigan, just outside of Detroit, and we've been in the industry for about 25 years, primarily focused on ERP and transaction systems. We have branched out into a lot of technologies like cloud solutions and automation. I've been with the firm 23 years, played a wide variety of roles, going from project management, implementation to account management, and now on to sales and marketing. So I also head the RPA practice at Thirdware.
In the last couple of months, there have been a lot of acrobatics because of all the disruption in manufacturing and supply chain. And a lot of companies realize that in these times, they have to do something different. So what are you seeing out there, Dharm? What are the kinds of trends and the activities that you've noticed with your customers?
That's a great question, Thomas. And so I have to answer that, by kind of looking at what was happening in the whole manufacturing sector, and especially automotive, where which is where we play a lot. So over the last, say, 10 years or so, there has been quite some adoption of digital technologies in various pockets, but it's not been very rampant. I mean, unlike, say, banking and finance or retail or some of these other industries where, they've been faster to adopt, digital platforms, it's not been the same in manufacturing. So you might call them more like a late adopter. They're also a little bit risk averse. So, and the business models probably were not so conducive to digital transformation on a large scale, right? So there were some pockets of digital transformation. People, tried to experiment with moving to the cloud, sometimes not, moving to a private cloud, and then some did some SaaS adoption. And so some pockets of digital transformation, but nothing large scale. And there was always some excuse, valid or not. There was always something to say, okay, I mean, we can't do this because of this. Okay. What the crisis has done is accelerated the whole process. Now, what we are seeing suddenly is a scramble. I mean, a lot of the customers that we work with have legacy applications, mainframe applications, etc., which are not really cut out for remote working and stuff like that. So, yes, there was this initial rush to get everybody hooked onto a VPN and get them access to their systems, and so on and so forth. But what I think the companies are realizing is that they just haven't paid enough attention to what it takes to digitally transform or adjust their business models to be able to be a true digital environment or true digital platform for both their employees as well as their customers. Now, obviously, it's not going to happen en masse and in all functions in all areas. there are going to be some pockets of, depending upon what is the need. There's going to be some internal stuff. There's going to be some external facing stuff. They're going to like kind of find that balance. But right now there is a lot of interest just because of the situation that these companies find themselves in.
Some businesses navigated the crisis better than others. What do you think the leaders do better than the laggards?
Some companies have probably invested a little more over the years, so they were in a slightly better position. But let's say if I contrast that to say the banking industry, right? I mean, the crisis hit, but did any one of us, personally or from a business perspective, miss a beat as far as kind of accessing our bank accounts? I mean, we had no issues whatsoever, right? I mean, paying, receiving money, transferring money to like kind of, parents, whatever, nothing. I mean, and it so happened that over the years we took it for granted, and the whole thing kind of held up, right? I mean, there was no blip in terms of how we worked through our kind of mobile devices, through our internet connections, etc. How we connected to our banking and financial system, and conducted those transactions. So when you compare that with what traditional manufacturing, is at, I think there's a huge gap. The other thing is, I kind of find that a bit surprising. I mean, you touched upon the supply chain part. I mean, manufacturing is traditionally a very low margin industry, right? I mean, typically like single digit margins. So it was a bit of a surprise for me over the years that why would they not adopt technology at a much larger scale? Because this can give them so much efficiency, so much productivity. And why are they staying away from this? And they're coming up with all these excuses. So there was always some reason as to why we can't do this. So I kind of dug into it a little deeper, and I found quite some things. I found some very interesting things. I mean, collectively as an organization, we kind of we looked at this, and it was interesting that what I found is that they did try out some bits and pieces of digital transformation, but probably the heart was not really in it. But they wanted to like show that they were doing something. So one thing that we found that it was top down, right? Somebody at the top said, "Oh, you know what? Why are we not adopting this technology, or why are we not getting more digital?" Digital transformation at the end of it is nothing but a change management initiative, and in many cases, that was a starting point for failure, where there was it was not communicated very well down the chain so that people really understood why are we doing this. Employees kind of decide what they want to use and how they want to use that, right? So you can't really put something and say that, okay, here it is. This is going to like kind of transform our business model. It's going to do something faster, cheaper, whatever. And the employees have to feel that. The people on the ground finally decide whether they want to use it and how they want to use it, right? So that kind of we found. So change management, these two aspects, and then the other thing was when you put something like this, when you kind of introduce a digital platform or kind of bring in a digital transformation initiative, okay, it changes the way the networks, formal, informal networks are kind of set up, just the way how people work, right? Because of new data, new insights, etc. So it calls for probably, let's say somebody was working in a silo before, and now they are kind of they are having to collaborate with a certain other department or colleague or something of that sort. So it kind of opens up all these new ways of working. And the last one is, are the areas that you're trying to implement, are that truly kind of going to yield you the business benefits that you really want? Because at the end of the day, you can put in something, and then if it doesn't tie up with your business plan and what you really want it to impact. It'll be a challenge to move that forward. So what I was trying to get at is many of these manufacturing companies tried some of these in bits and pieces. Because of this, it became a digital flop, and then they were kind of reluctant to try something else. They kept trying a little bit here and there, and then they just gave up on some of these areas.
In another interview, we discussed that sometimes companies with digital experience navigated the crisis better than those who had no prior digital experience. Have you noticed how some companies were better than others in digital transformation due to that?
Okay, somebody who has the credibility and who can be the spokesperson for that digital initiative or the digital transformation is key. Because that can act as a huge influence on the rest of it. Because all it takes is one naysayer to say, "Hey, this doesn't work," okay, and then everybody's kind of happy to give up. So that is definitely the key. The second part that you mentioned, right? I mean, once they succeed in something, and we are seeing that a lot with the RPA for sure. Okay, but I'm also seeing that in some other areas, like on the shop floor with IoT and smart manufacturing, with some of the what do you call digitization of the supply chain. What we are seeing is that is once it succeeds, it kind of there is a lot more traction that the digital transformation initiative gains within the company. So both are kind of I think very essential. There has to be that the champion, one person or a group of people who kind of who champion this, who truly believe it, and can evangelize about whatever digital transformation initiative that they're leading, which kind of acts as a catalyst for others to kind of emulate and to follow. And yeah, I mean, RPA of late has been really good. What we've seen is that the good part about RPA is that the time to implement and see some results is very, very short, right? I mean, so they can see some tangible results extremely fast. And that kind of, drives a lot of interest, that drives a lot of adoption. So if you can actually put automate a process within 8 to 10 weeks, which is kind of, the average time it takes us to kind of put a medium complexity process in place, they're like, wow, really? In 2 months, we get to see so much results. So I've kind of worked across a lot of platforms, ERP, EPM, cloud applications, but RPA is where I have seen kind of the light bulb go off, saying that wow, we can really do this and get some results.
It's funny how we talk about manufacturing being a laggard in digital transformation, yet this industry produced the most comprehensive framework called Industry 4.0 that addressed both physical and digital transformation. How do you think Industry 4.0 fared in the crisis, and what's the road ahead like?
So I think if I look into the future, Industry 4.0 still holds a tremendous promise. Okay, I think there are some some barriers when it comes to large scale adoption of Industry 4.0 in terms of some common standards and technologies and what people understand as truly as Industry 4.0 and I think that's going to get cleared up over the next couple of years. So I see that there's going to be a lot of adoption of that.
So what technology are you most excited about? I know I am about VR. I still remember the first time I saw a field technician with a VR headset fixing a machine that they had no prior experience with. And all the manuals and the guides on how to fix the machine came through the VR headset. What are those technologies that you get excited about?
Augmented reality, 3D printing, going forward, where you really talk about mass customization and really coming into play, and then the whole IoT space, kind of getting dragged. See, one thing that I see is from a shop floor perspective. Okay, from a pure manufacturing perspective, I think there is a fair degree of automation. So to your question, I mean, this is something that we actually kind of wrote about a couple of years ago, saying that if you look at, say, take the automotive industry, right? I mean, the assembly lines are automated to an extremely high degree, right? So we actually kind of felt that, hey, if you can automate the assembly line to such a high degree, and you've kind of done that over the last, say, 20, 25 years or 30 years, you would be more amenable to automate your back end processes as well, right? Because you have a proven example of automating the shop floor. But it really didn't happen. I mean, that translation didn't happen. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that. That was very interesting. But going back to the shop floor, I think there is a significantly high degree of automation on the shop floor. The question is, how do we get that data out into the enterprise applications? How does that whole flow of information take place in ways that that can help you get to market faster, that can be more responsive to changing customer needs, and so on and so forth. Planning, replanning, inventory, procurement. How do you kind of address how do you break all these different silos and remove the friction in that entire value chain, so that you can get more efficient, you can become more agile, you can kind of become more profitable, and you can service your customers faster and better. So how do you do that? I think that's the whole challenge, and I think a lot of different technologies are going to kind of play in this area. So yeah, I mean, I think for a moment, I mean, if you look at the current geopolitical kind of situation, with probably a lot of manufacturing kind of coming back into the United States, and sort of manufacturing kind of getting a little bit of a boost over here. I think manufacturers will be forced to kind of look at some of these technologies. I think Vinny touched upon this as well, where he said that we've gone too far on the outsourcing side, right? And now when it comes back, I mean, you may not be able to just bring it back just like that. You'll have to look at how technology is going to enable you to kind of do this better, faster, more efficient, cheaper. So yeah, I think a lot of technology will help manufacturing firms in addressing this.
Dharm, let me put you in a hot seat. You're in front of a manufacturing CEO who just went through the crisis, the acrobatics, the disruption. And they realized that they're missing something in the playbook, something around digital technology. What would your recommendation be for them?
I think first and foremost, just kind of if there's something to learn from, say, banking and online banking and so forth. So how is it that how can CEOs make their companies more resilient in to function in hopefully we won't have another crisis, but if there is a crisis, and how do you kind of not miss a beat? I'll take an example. Let's take in automotive, right? I mean, you do vehicle crash testing. So normally typical automotive companies kind of test maybe 30-35 pre-production vehicles, crash test them, right? You could also do it using you could do it virtually as well, right? So if you look at that area where if you're doing it physically crash testing 30 cars, 35 cars, and if you were hit with a crisis like this, that whole thing is kind of going to be on hold, right? But if you move it virtually, not only are you saving a lot of that cost, but you can also keep working on it and kind of just improve the throughput of your business. So like that, if they look at each area a little carefully and say that how can I kind of get away from my traditional mindset of this is the way we have done things in the past, and this is how it's going to continue to let's look at this. Is this the right what do you call function, or is this the right process? Can we apply technology? Can we kind of apply some form of digital platform to it and kind of change this to meet certain changing circumstances? I think that's what primarily they should kind of look for.
So that was actually my last question. Dharm, thanks so much for joining me today and giving your unique perspective on manufacturing and its transformation. Looking forward to having you again. Talk soon.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Yeah, thank you. And you have a great day.